Hey friends, Jen here. Thanks so much for tuning in and welcome back to Homestead Heal. Today is a fantastic show with Dr. Wade Anunson. But before we jump in, I want to tell you something that I just can't keep a lid on. I'm super excited to tell you that a few weeks ago, I sat down with Brian Willingham. He's a firefighter in Phoenix, Arizona, who's also the United Phoenix Firefighter President. Many of you know I am deeply, deeply passionate and have spent many years learning, listening, and supporting firefighters and first responders in their quest and journey to detox their body to manage their health. This is a job that is not only super stressful mentally, but the exposure of toxic chemicals that burden and wreak havoc on the body is immeasurable. I've worked with thousands of firefighters over the years, and the common denominator is that they're struggling both mentally and physically. Plus, most are working through or had in the past some sort of cancer. Brian and I sit down and pull back the curtain for a very real and raw conversation about it all. His personal childhood trauma, the challenges firefighters face every day, plus what he's done and currently doing now to support his physical and mental health. Whether you're a firefighter, you know one, or you just want to better understand what they manage and sacrifice on a daily basis, this is a show you don't want to miss. It's raw, it's real, and one of my most important conversations to date. So please tune in 2 weeks. Also, my team always says I talk a lot, so I'm going to say this really quick. Also, I want to remind you that my winter wellness sauna sale is still going on. So if you have a sauna on your wish list and you're ready to dial into your optimal health, hop on over to my site, jenhellerlifestyle.com, and click on the shop saunas. If you know me, you know my sauna is hands down my favorite wellness tool for many reasons. It's not just a warm, cozy cabin in the winter. It's a legit healing tool that can improve your sleep, help shed unwanted pounds, plus reduce stress, inflammation, pain, and even provide significant relief for stubborn migraines. I can't even put a number on the amount of people who came into my sauna studio over the years with a horrible headache and walked out without one. I'll never forget the looks on their faces and the tears shed with gratitude. Infrared, you guys, infrared is so amazing and powerful. I truly believe it's one of the best ways you can heal your body, mind, and spirit. Just to add to that, most of you already know my story and that I shed 125 pounds 15 years ago. And if you don't, please feel free to check out the sweet before and after photo on my site. No joke, the main driver in my fat and weight loss was sweating my ass off in the sauna. Pardon my French, but it's necessary. It opened my detox pathways to release and dump the toxic garbage hanging out in my cellular system. I literally burned 500 to 600 calories per session, plus kicked my metabolism and mindset into high gear. It honestly totally changed my life in so many ways. Now, full disclosure, I was loaded with heavy metals, mercury and lead, and that was playing a massive role in my obesity and horrible health in general. But it's the infrared heat that opened up my sweat glands and elevated my core temperature so that I could sweat and detox from the inside out. Infrared heat also relaxed my mind and body and moved me into what's called a parasympathetic state, so I could release the weight and stress and toxic overload. Hence, I let go of 125 pounds, pretty much half my body weight. Not overnight, obviously, but it did in fact happen quite quickly, and I'm a fan of actionable results. Fast forward 15 years, and here we are. Okay, so that felt like a little bit of a tangent. I wasn't really planning. But you guys, I'm so wildly passionate about infrared heat. You know this, particularly clear light saunas, because they're not only the safest and most effective sauna on the market, in my opinion, but it's like having a wellness center in your home. I know many of you already have them and you're nodding your head yes. It's the exact reason I started this show, actually. I just can't emphasize enough how important it is to get the tools you need under your roof so you have access to them 24/7 so you can optimize and maintain your health and well-being. The health freedom this creates in your life is so powerful. So invest in your health, invest in yourself, and learn more over at jenhellerlifestyle.com. There's a fabulous sale going on right now, and almost every sauna is in stock, which means they're literally on your doorstep within 2 weeks. So what in the world are you waiting for? The biggest, most expansive health shift in our lifetime is happening right now, and I want you to get on the train with me. Let's go. Okay, so let's set that down. Those are the things I wanted to tell you. So speaking of saunas, though, let's shift gears and highlight my guest today, the brilliant Dr. Wade Anunson. Saunas are just one of the many things he and I share a deep desire about, and actually why we connected years ago. We not only both have roots and family and mutual friends in my hometown of Rhinelander, but we connected years ago because of his podcast on the many benefits of infrared heat. So today we're going to talk about the benefits of alignment, how to reduce stress to balance and harmonize your body, plus his knowledge and my experience with B3 bands, otherwise known as blood flow restriction bands. I was at Wade's office for a demo presentation when I first tried the bands, actually. And let me just say, the magical feeling of the life force energy that I felt that night literally brought me to tears, and I had to sit down. It was so incredible. The bands have allowed me to tighten my workouts to 12 to 20 minutes each day with much more intentional movement, which is fabulous for my schedule and routine. So I feel leaner, stronger, and I don't feel totally burnt out when I'm done with my workouts. Plus, the release of human growth hormone is like a jolt of energy. It's incredible, and my body and mind are both reaping the rewards. So hang tight. We're going to dig into the details shortly. A bit about Wade. He runs a successful chiropractic clinic in Madison, Wisconsin with his wife, Dr. Heather Anunson. His passion for business systems, human behavior, and the quality of communication have been key components with innovating functional health and adjusting technique protocols in chiropractic. Functional health innovator, cancer survivor, podcast host, author, influencer, drug-free patient advocate, and personal health freedom activist, Wade lives a very active and vibrant lifestyle. His life's work centers around empowering others to maximize their health, vitality, healing, and realizing their human potential with drug-free protocols. He currently lectures on technique, nutritional approaches for metabolic flexibility, immune health, digestive disorders, thyroid health, disc and behavioral communication, and the science of blood flow restriction therapy and training. Wade is a wealth of knowledge and a huge voice in the wellness world and opioid crisis, as well as vaccine education. I'm so grateful for our friendship and this conversation today. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Wade Anunson to the show. Are you struggling with low energy, weight gain, hormonal imbalances, or heavy metal and mold toxicity? Do you want to learn more about anti-aging tips and creating more longevity in your life? Well, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Jen Heller, a wellness educator, infrared sauna expert, and home health consultant. In this podcast, Homes That Heal, I will teach you how to transform your home into a health and wellness sanctuary. Your health is your wealth, and I believe that your home should be your sanctuary space, loaded with the tools you need to thrive in your life, not just survive. If you want to feel fantastic and transform your life and home, grab a pen, let's dive in and create a home that heals. Hey friends, Jen here. Welcome back to another show of Homes That Heal. Today we are joined by Dr. Wade Anunson. Hello, Wade. How are you today? Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Jen. It's good to be here. I'm excited to have a chat with you.
Yeah, we are going to dive deep into the world of chiropractic care, alignment, some of the history of your wellness path, as well as at the end or somewhere in the mix, we're going to talk a little bit about blood flow restriction bands and B3 bands. But first, I kind of want to give you the floor. We've already talked about the color of your walls behind you for those that are watching on YouTube. I've already mentioned that I love the color of the aura around you, the energy around you. So I am very fascinated by your overall life path and career in chiropractic care. So I'd love to hear a little bit of how you got into it and where we are to bring you to here.
Okay. Well, I won't bore you with the whole story. As you know, I have had a couple podcasts, one being The Starting Point, and then the current one where I'm at, Life Force Radio. And I tell my story in there a couple different times in different ways with different applications. But I came from a large family, blue collar family, 7 kids. I had chronic ear infections. My mom used to work for a physician, Eisenhower, actually, in the state of Washington, who was an old GP type practitioner and had philosophical stint of drugs last, conservative first. So that's what she kind of took away with it. Well, it was way before I was even a figment of their imagination and creation. They had my oldest sister there, and then they moved back to Wisconsin. But when she worked out there, she had a lot of take-home value and applied to her family. So long story short, I had chronic ear infections. They tried antibiotics. They just kept coming back. She took me to the chiropractor. Within a couple weeks, they never came back. a couple weeks of seeing him. And the interesting thing there was it's not a crack house either. It was what's called toughness technique, which is very low force, directional non-force technique. And it's based off Logan's work, but toughness was in the state of Wisconsin and developed the technique. And his great nephew was my provider, Dr. Fernandez. And so this was in Wisconsin Rapids back in circa 1973. So that said, it was the impact in my life that made a huge difference. And for some reason, I just knew I wanted to do that. And that impact it had on me was kind of bizarre. I felt like I didn't choose it. It kind of chose me. It just fascinated me. Well, then fast forward in high school, had a shoulder injury. I tore it playing baseball, diving for a ball, farted around with that, with different healthcare medically. And finally, they said they wanted to do surgery. And my mom said, that's it, we're going to the chiropractor. And being a wise, sassy 15-year-old teenager, basically said, come on, we need to see a real doc. And the funniest thing is that's conditioning, by the way. That response was conditioned. And yet I would get adjusted for attitude problems because I had one. And my mom just knew, like, dude, you're off. You're going to the chiropractor. And what do you think the response was? No, I'm not. And it's like, no, you get on your bike and you're going. And so he was only 3 blocks away from us. We could ride anywhere on our bikes almost.
I was going to say, riding the bikes, grew up in the 80s and 90s, so a little bit older than or younger than you, but we rode our bikes everywhere.
Yeah. So, and again, it was just one of those things that was fine back in the day without any questions. It always made a difference, had an impact on me. Well, after that visit with my shoulder tear, I literally could shake his hand after that. And before it, I couldn't even grab a baseball and squeeze it. It again had another impact. And again, these lasting kind of impressions. And I took it for granted because a lot of my classmates and teammates playing soccer, wrestling, baseball, basketball as a kid, I didn't even realize none of them got adjusted, or most of them didn't. I was the weird one. And so it was kind of bizarre because I had this philosophy that the body can do a lot of its work. And I was also fascinated, but by that time I had all kinds of evidence that just kept stacking up. And I knew I wanted to be a chiropractor, but I didn't want to go to school that long. And so in college, all of a sudden, I was looking for a way out, trying to find a different profession. I was going to be a guide on Lake Michigan because I loved fishing, or something out in the wildlife, or going to work for the DNR because I loved being outdoors, thinking that's what was going to support and fulfill me. It was just looking for a way out. So once I decided I was going to go, everything just fell into place. Everything, including the sponge I became as a learning. Like, it came easy. Everything that I thought I didn't want to study or know how to study, or, I never really had to study. And I was a B student in high school. And that was kind of crazy because in college, you have to learn how to study, literally. I mean, sadly, I had to learn. Everything just came natural. So I flew through chiropractic school, came out, started my own practice, and then we've always been on our own, my wife and I. And one of the things getting to B3 that made a difference is that shoulder injury I had set up a chronic stage, and I stayed active physically. I mean, I've either competed mountain biking, competitive archery, competitive tennis, singles tennis, golf. I mean, I was always outdoors. I fly fish, I bow hunt as well. And so I'm always using my body. And then it was martial arts, mixed martial arts training, which you have a familiarity of knowing your history. Yeah. My shoulder was getting worse and worse. And so I did hear about B3 bands from a buddy of mine who's a colleague I graduated with. We were kind of reunited and he introduced me to him. It didn't make sense at the time, went right over my head. So wherever I was in my life, which was post-cancer, that's a whole nother story, but dealing with the metabolic, dealing with shifting my practice, much like you said of your Wanakee acquaintances, those incidents kind of redirect our life if we're paying attention. It completely changed what I'm going to do and what I felt like the universe wanted me to do. And so that pivot point had me going down thyroid, cancer, multiple iron disorders such as hemochromatosis, how chronic iron overload is in non-hemochrome individuals, the role it plays, toxicity. That's a whole nother topic as well. But my head was already into that metabolic side and mitochondrial health. And when I saw the bands, it seemed gimmicky and it just wasn't there. So I moved forward. And then about 15 months later, I ran into Dr. Otto again. And he said, did you ever take a look at that information? And I said, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Forgot already, right? So he goes, I said, send it again. And so he does, and I'll take a look at it. He did. I looked at it. I'm like, all of a sudden it clicked, Jen. Just like that, I heard growth hormone, low cortisol, impact on the body's regeneration, and tendon synthesis. Growth hormone and tendon synthesis. We can come back to the details of that if you'd like. Mm-hmm. But my chronic shoulder pain through martial arts is, if I had class, I could not sleep that night without pain. It was a dull, nagging ache, which I knew the degenerative changes were catching up from the chronic. That injury is 35 years old. So now all the wear and tear on top of it, weight training would help if I did it, but it also hurt. So I had to waffle between knowing what I needed for strength and stability and not aggravating it too much, and then just joint mice degenerative changes over time, whether it be arthritic from mechanical stress and scar tissue and whatnot. So I'm thinking I'm just going to get surgery. Now it's a matter of time. How long can I live with this? And I don't use pain meds. I don't take drugs. I'm not going to do that as a lifestyle. That's not an option, period. To me, it's what can I do for my body? Insert B3 bands. That's my first test. If this can help my shoulder stabilize, actually improve the level of pain, reduce that pain, reduce the level of inflammation, enhance my reparative, restorative, regenerative hormones, natural physiology, but tapping into that, then this is worth a shot. So the first purchase of that was simply to see if they even made sense, if they actually did what they said, and how I'd respond. And I remember getting them, taking them to Mexico, and we were there for 14 days, and 11 of those days I was in the bands. And I pushed it hard and a little too hard because, of course, people, more is better all the time.
Same.
So
You say you should do it 3 times a week. I'm going to do it 5. That's my mind.
Yeah, if 20 minutes is good, then 30 is better.
30
No,
should be better.
human nature, yeah. And it was just significant. And then I started noticing that not only was I feeling better, and I could use my shoulder, my arms, and not have aggravating pain just by using it. Sleeping got better, of course. My workouts were shorter by about a fifth of the time because I actually liked working out. I'm not addicted to the time it takes to work out, but I certainly was, I don't even want to say addicted, I relied and enjoyed the benefits of working out. But granted, if I could get time back, I would happily shorten my workouts. I'm not a gym rat to say, hey, and some people are, I get it, and that's cool. But the majority of the population doesn't want to be a gym rat and invest all their time in working out. They want to be productive in other areas of their life, even if it's just time, family time, right? Or hobbies and whatnot. So that's where this opened a window to me. I realized that if our physical exercise is physically demanding on the body, we go back all the way to Hans Selye. Okay, Hans Selye was the communicator of stress, different types of stress. There's a book written by Sapolsky years ago called Why Zebras Don't Have Stripes. He's a researcher. He spoke in Madison. I went down and watched him and listened to him lecture because I had been a student of his book. But the real key here is that the stress response in the body is unique. However, there's a stress cascade that we go through. That's predictable. And that stress cascade starts with survival, not thrival. Where our energy goes, if our attention goes, our energy flows. And so if we're being consumed by a lot of that riffraff in our life, the environmental, just keeping things up, and this leads into why you exist with your podcast, which is brilliant, especially in today's day and age, because our environments are really showing up as to how they're impacting us, right? And we can change a lot. And those are the things we want to focus on, what we can, right? What I kept hearing from my patients over the last 30 years in practice was, what can I do, Dr. Anunson, to help me make my adjustments, to keep in alignment, to support my health, to strengthen these weak areas, to get better so I don't need all these adjustments, so to speak? Well, there's a loaded question, a brilliant one, but a loaded one, because I'm dealing with infants that are literally minutes old to elderly in their mid to late 90s sometimes. And I have a full spectrum of what they can and can't do and all the conditions that they do or don't have, and then the comorbidities that they also have. For example, women that are osteoporotic and actually have a bone disease from, some of its byproduct from being on a drug that was supposed to regenerate bone and actually destroyed the kidneys and now is destroying bone even faster, to a gentleman who's going to lose his leg from a post-surgery, having a rod in his leg. And he was literally, and I think I shared that story in our class. The message for my patients then was, what if the majority of the population doesn't want to be in the gym as long as I do? So in other words, a lot of times as providers, because I teach other chiropractors technique, and one of the things that is a theme is, what worked for me is now what I'm going to apply to everyone else. Or what I like, my preferences, I'm going to now assume everyone has my preferences. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm just saying, I don't presume. One of my mentors helped me with this. It's like, why do patients come in? For their reasons. So what is their reason for coming in? If it's just headaches and I'm offering them lifetime wellness care, am I matching? Am I supposed to do that? Is that a should? My point is, we're coached and conditioned in many ways. And if we step back and actually practice what I refer to as it's the platinum rule, I didn't make it up. It was taught to me. But the golden rule. The golden rule is do unto others as you would have done unto you. Okay, so I'm just breaking this down, right? So do unto others, the platinum rule is do unto others as they would have been done unto. In other words, do unto others as they want done to them, for them. That's the servant. So now I don't have an agenda with my business, my care. My agenda is what is the patient's goals and can I help them meet them? It's their goals so they can be done when they want to be done, when they feel like their goals are met. And there's no, you have to be here and then I want you here for the rest of my days or your days. It's more like, what do you want? What are you here for? What would you like help with? What makes you think I can help you? Where'd you come from? Where did you think that this could help that? Why does that matter? Because I want to know what they're thinking and I want to align with their goals to know if I'm the right fit or not. And I'm perfectly okay with that because fast forward, I've had plenty of relationships over time that, quite frankly, you'd rather have the benefit of having it be attuned. I know this about you already, than you'd have it be a costly, expensive, and draining relationship. It's just not worth it to us anymore. So the point there is back to how I applied it to my patients. I'm not here to sell them bands. I'm here to help them meet their health goals. And this is a way that actually can accomplish it no matter what their physical condition. That's what I liked about the bands. And from a rehab, therapeutic, supportive, and also strengthening fitness over enhancement standpoint, it can fit such a full spectrum. And I could give you multiple examples, one being John. 60 plus year old patient, had a broken leg before I met him, had a rod inserted in. He has scar tissue and some damage structurally in that leg. But he used to be literally, I would say, a world-class type runner. He was on Runner's World magazine years ago and owned shoe stores, running shoe stores in Colorado before he moved back to the state. And so he found me after this leg surgery, which was getting multiple staph infections over and over. And once I started seeing him, this is about 4 years ago, he did great. No more staph infections. So what are we doing there? Chiropractic and helps circulation, blood flow, neurology, enhances immune function, whatever. I mean, I could get into it from that standpoint, but is it a cure-all? No, that's not what it's for. It's to enhance the body's ability to heal itself and express health. He did well with chiropractic. And then he also has the privilege and right to have other things going on in his life. He had a stressor. His diet's not perfect. His lifestyle is definitely not perfect. And he does like to work out, but all of a sudden he couldn't work out because he got sick. And then his leg was like turning purple, like black purple. And there's a spot that is purple because of the surgery, but the whole leg was never purple down below his knee. And so he came in and his leg was really swollen. He said, Dr. A, I'm really sorry about your table, all my lotion, because he always wears shorts. He's like, I'm getting lotion all over your table. I said, dude, that's all right, no problem. But I said, your legs, he goes, my skin's really dry. I said, your skin's not just dry. You are so swollen, your leg is dying. You're not regenerating new skin. I took it further by asking questions. And that's what he told me is he had this bloody part on his toe, like he was bleeding through his shoe. And I said, what's going on with your foot? He goes, well, I have a hangnail or something. I said, oh, okay. Can you feel this? So I'm doing a prick test on it. Really simple. Do that right on the spot. No, I'm not feeling that. Okay. That's a problem. And this is not normal for him. And I've known him for, again, like I said, about 4 years. So with all his imperfections, he's always done pretty well. And we know there's limitations. All of a sudden he's stuck. And I said, you need to go to the emergency room immediately from here. You have to go and I will call you later. And my staff knew and everyone knew I was urging him to get there right from here. Adjusted him, sent him on his way. Didn't go until the next morning. Oh. It's all right. He was fine, but that's patients do that, right? I'm like, I can't force him. I can just do my best to urge the importance of it. I don't mean to belabor the story, but he went 4 weeks with that. I still saw him a couple times a week based on where he was with his schedule. Again, I give him that opportunity. If it's benefiting, he corroborates with my recommendations. And he was benefiting, but he also knew he had to do that. So he's on an antibiotic for 4 weeks. By right around that 4th week, they're wanting to transition him. So he sees a podiatrist. By the way, he's in walking boots. That first day they assessed him at the emergency room the next day, they said he had an ulceration on his foot about 3 inches. That ulceration was basically his foot was open wound and he was infected and he was going to turn gangrene. I knew that he was losing life down there and he couldn't feel anything. So boom, we got to get him squared away. Well, he's now in the walking boot. He's on antibiotics for 4 weeks. And he says, now they want to send me to a podiatrist for IV antibiotics 5 days a week. He's got to get in his car, go there, get on an IV bag, come home, do that every day for another 6 weeks.
Holy cow.
He goes, Doc, do I have to do this? And I remember this very explicitly. Number one, I do not treat infections, and I don't claim to. That's not in our scope. And I don't have recommendations with drugs. I can give contraindications. I can give consent information, informed consent, but I don't recommend to or not to. And I just want to be really clear there. So I said, John, I can't answer that, but I do have an alternative possibly if this works. And I said, what if you knew, and I was really getting clear on the bands. I had been with them already for about 4 to 5 months. So I saw the results. I saw their patients' results. I was doing research. I'm teaching. And I'm like, I know this impacts the blood flow and I know it impacts the immune system. What if we could stimulate that? Because he hadn't tried them yet. He goes, Doc, I'll do whatever. So I get him in the room after an adjustment. He's already there. We get him sitting on my table. I know you've heard this, but for the listeners, he's sitting on my exam table and he's in his both walking boots yet. But the swelling's down, the color's started to improve, but it's not 100% yet. And even though he's on the medication, if he goes off, then what? Because he's still got to have some life force, vital force in his body there. So we get him doing the bands, literally 2 minutes. He feels the change. 2 minutes in the arms while he's sitting down. He feels the change. He feels the burn and he feels the change. He's like, wow, he just can't believe it because he likes working out and he never feels this. He gets up and he walks out. He just has this grin on his face and he just can't believe it's an instant feedback. And I'm observing as a student going, wow, this is cool. And then I don't want to get my hopes up, but I see him again. He does it again. He's like, are we going to do that? I'm like, sure. Because he goes, I felt good for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm like, okay, I'm taking notes. Does it again. So we go through 4 times. Then on the 5th time, he comes in, throws his card at my front desk staff and says, can you just order me those bands? I got to get them. And he never had to go on the antibiotic. He's healed up from the inside out to this point. He loves his bands. In fact, he's the one who doesn't listen to me and works out 30 minutes when I said and urged John, no, it's only 20 minutes is all you need. There's no real known benefit thereafter. In fact, it could stress the body. But Doc, it feels so good. And so he's doing fantastic right now. And eventually, I mean, I did an interview with him and I have some on it, but again, he's pretty shy. He's certainly okay with me sharing this, but at the same time, he wants to lay low. Let's say it that way.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, I have heard that story, but I've got goosebumps all over just listening to it again because as you know, and I don't know if you listened to my show or my conversation with Allie a couple of weeks ago, you did, I think.
By the way, I loved it.
Thank you. For the listeners, go back 2 weeks, or I guess a couple of weeks with Allie McWilliams. I had a similar, now my leg wasn't gangrene and it wasn't dead from the inside out. However, everyone knows I've had a stroke years ago, paralysis and some muscle atrophy. I'm doing quite well, but I'm still working to get that life force energy back in these left side limbs where for a few years they were pretty dead, right? They just weren't moving. They were paralyzed, pretty much muscle atrophy, a lot of issue. I've never lost a feeling. I've never had, because I've been tested a bazillion times, plus I'm always testing myself. Fortunately, I've never gotten so far down the path of where I can't feel that. Or, I've always had feeling. The motor function is what has been in the hand and in the foot what has been diminished. The muscle, I'm pretty symmetrical. At this point, I've got a little bit of atrophy still left in the leg on the left side and a bit on the wrist. But I had my own holy cow moment at your office a few weeks ago when I came in and put the bands on. And I don't know if you noticed it. I know we talked a little bit about it, but I think it was maybe we put the bands on and we did the squats. I think we just held squat or we held sumo position. I call it, I'm yogi, so I have like different positions. And we just sat, I think in that for 60, 90 seconds just to start to feel that burn. And I'm at 30 seconds in, I was like, oh, there it is. There's the burn, but I love it. You love that feeling. I mean, you kind of burn out, but it wasn't shaking and I felt supported. I think that's the best way that I could describe it. So then, 30 or however many, was it 60 seconds? Did we do 60 or 90 second intervals? I don't even remember. I think it was 60, wasn't it?
You guys were the tough ones because normally I'm going to put people in a demo. I'm going to put them 2 minutes and let them experience it, but not push them and make them hurt tomorrow, right? The goal is to show them how quickly the experience is and let them out as soon as they're willing and want to. You guys kept plugging away at me. This is worth noting because it went on longer and you guys did not want to quit, which is funny because I'm like, okay, I'm rolling with this group. The goal was the burn stimulated perfectly for you, which was also fascinating because I'm watching you with your history going, what is she going to experience either by way of both legs or limbs, or is it going to be one, but she's not going to feel the other? I'm watching and trying to learn, right? And you
Right.
felt it. I'm like, cool.
Yeah. I think the
30
biggest
seconds.
thing, yeah, the biggest thing for me was the first aha was that first 2 minutes or the first 90 seconds. And then I stood up and I felt symmetrical. So that's the best way I can describe it. Normally, there's a different feeling on the left side than there is the right. There's usually more shakiness. There's usually a little bit more tension. Sometimes I get almost like a Charlie horse feeling, like it's going to cramp out on you. Like it doesn't have as much, and not even elasticity, but it's a Charlie horse is the best way I can describe it. And it's usually either between my wrists and my elbow, if it's my arms, or it's the lower leg, or sometimes even in the foot, the left foot. It's not getting enough circulation, so it's going to cramp and it's going to let me know I didn't get that. So that's why the first look on my face, I was like, oh, what do we have here? And I actually, if you remember, I kind of sat down a couple times on your tables that you have there. I kind of sat down and I just thought, what do we have here? What is this interesting? And I don't think I said anything on the first go. I think you were watching me, but I didn't really communicate other than I thought, okay, this feels different. And then I think you walked us over to the wall where we did a wall sit. We did a couple of things with the legs, and I was fine. I felt the same thing where things felt very symmetrical, stable, and secure, which again, left side always a little less stable than the right side. Together, they're pretty solid. But if you stand on the left, it never feels as supported. If you're in tree pose in yoga, like I can stand solid on right all day long. Left, I'm like a little wobbly, whatever. I was doing left and right, and it was pretty solid. Like it was pretty symmetrical. That was interesting. And then you walked us over and we started integrating the resistance bands with the arms. And I think that's where you got me because I had to make some adjustments because I can't grip very well on the left hand. I can't hold those bands as well on the left as I can the right. So you had come over to help me just kind of create some additional resistance. And again, it was like I've never been able to have that kind of movement in my left arm symmetrically on both sides and it feel supported. And so I don't think you knew this. I told Allie when we chatted, like I actually got emotional when we were there that night. I had to actually sit down because I was like, holy cow, anybody who's ever gone through a pretty severe illness or situation and you don't have, I call it life on the left side of the body, or you feel like you're chasing your health backwards for years. I mean, everybody knows my story. It's like years of hopeless, I had hope, but it was like dead ends. But then you come across something that literally channels life force energy through your body and you feel it. It weakens me at my knees. It gets me emotional right now just thinking about it because it's the hope that there's hope. It's the hope that there's life left. And I know that my body has the innate ability to heal itself because I've been doing that now for years. And I've been trusting in that. And I trust my higher power to continue to guide me that way. But I felt it that night. Like I felt confirmation. And it was 10 minutes. We were 10 minutes in. And to go back, whatever it was, 30 minutes when we first started this, I definitely am not a gym rat. I do not want to spend all my time in the gym. My time is one of my most valuable assets. And I'd rather be in service to other people and other things. I'd rather be spending time with my husband. I'd rather be outside. I'd rather be enjoying a good book and a cup of coffee. I do not want to be in the gym and I don't want to designate 30, 40, 55 minutes to working out every day. I mean, I used to. I used to love it. I used to MMA, running, all the things, 20s and 30s. Like I was all in on that, but I'm in a different place in my life now. And I also want to be gentler on my body and spend my time doing other things I enjoy. So the fact that I can get the feeling and the enjoyment and the results out of a 20-minute workout, it's everything to me. Game changing doesn't even describe it in my world because it, for me personally and my health, it also unlocked a key for me. But I also think that a lot of people resonate with that. They don't want to spend their time hours and hours in the gym or trying to get to a certain physical fitness. I think that's what deters a lot of people from doing anything is because they think they need to have this massive commitment to it. And you just don't. You just need to be committed to a specific amount of time and be intentional about that time. And that's what I love about the bands is that you can be super intentional. Like yesterday, I only had 7 minutes. I got off my treadmill. I normally walk outside, but I have a really tight schedule yesterday. So I was like downstairs on my treadmill for 15 minutes, just getting some movement. And I'm like, oh, I got to get I got a 9:15. I got 7 minutes. I come upstairs. Mark's, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to put the bands on. I got 7 minutes. So I got the bands on and I got in 5. Now, you probably say I should have done more time in between, but I did plank, I did wall sits, I did my armband. I just got in 7 minutes of something. It was better than nothing. And I felt fantastic. I was like, out the door, here I go. The rush of and I want you to speak to this. So tell me, as well as everyone listening, like what is happening when you're putting these bands on? Layman's terms, what's happening with the blood flow restriction?
First of all, I love your story, and I get chills hearing you say that. I was chills up the back of my neck because without a premise and a foundation that the body is self-healing and self-regulating, there is no independence or empowerment, period. Like
Right.
my wish for the world, others, and it's not like I'm here to save. I'm heartbroken by the fact that people don't own where healing comes from, period. And all it takes, like when I'm talking to patients and they start celebrating, oh my gosh, this is feeling better, that's better. My first take when I'm adjusting them, is there anything you want me to focus on today? No, my headaches have been better. Then if they don't have anything new, I'm like, so how's your digestion doing since that was a problem, but you didn't bring it up today? Oh, that's been better. And you're not complaining about your shoulder. Have you noticed that as well? That's been better too. You're right. My point here for mentioning that is when they're absent of the symptoms, we're human. We always forget kind of like how bad it was then. And one of the things I end up saying to them, not as a cliche, but my real goal is to prove them right. I'm here to prove you right, that you're worth helping and that you always had it in you. And the reality is that's you. So you have a life force that's there, but why isn't it getting there? The thing that fascinated me with the B3 and BFR is how we use the body's natural physiology. We're not trying to outsmart it. We're not trying to hack it. And yes, that's my subjectivity coming in, but I don't believe we can outsmart the body. That's just my take and my clinical observation, both as a patient and a clinician, is that the body always has a response. Like you put a drug in, there's a consequence. It's either blocking an enzyme, taking up an enzyme spot, or it's creating a different enzyme byproduct. So if we take the pharmacology piece out, you throw a drug in, it's a wrench into the equation, you are going to get a change in symptoms. But now what other system has to respond to that chemical, that drug, that response, and then try to communicate again where the body's out of balance? So my curiosity was, how do we stress the body the least and stimulate, not even stimulate or depress, but promote the body's own innate ability to heal, which you have a great grasp on. I love hearing you speak about that because it's very rooted and you're a good communicator with it. And with people's physiology, all we're doing is by way of restricting blood flow and then using the muscles, where the body's asking for more oxygen in the venous blood flow. And it's not actually occluding. So the uniqueness of B3 bands is that it's a patented multi-pocketed circumferential all the way around the arm compression, which means it's also flexible and it's not rigid. Like a blood pressure cuff is rigid and wide, which completely occludes, which it's supposed to. It means shuts off completely the blood flow, which is why they don't leave that on very long. They get it to pressure, they test it, and they release it because it doesn't feel good. And if you noticed anyone ever testing your blood pressure that leaves it on too long, you're like, can you take that thing off? It hurts. That's not what this is. It was discovered in that way, but it's been refined. So B3 offers the patented version. Why I like it is it's safe because people like John will do it more and they're still safe. They will screw it up, their exercise, and they're still safe. They can be imperfect and we don't have to worry, they're still safe. So the liability is extremely low on these particular bands. And yes, there are cheaper bands people can find that are equally as restrictive, but not comfortable and not as effective by way of creating some pain. So how the bands work is, with all that said, is by restricting and then using the muscle distal. So it's restricted here for people that this is audio, correct? Versus just
No, people can watch on YouTube. I mean, most people listen to audio, but if they want to come back to it, they certainly can. Yeah, to the.
I'll just
Do you have any handy?
yeah. So what I would normally do is, first of all, this band is too small for me. So the point is to compress the venous flow and then create a demand on the muscle. And then the pituitary gland, a brain center, says, hey, we need more oxygen there. So how does the body do that? It perceives more of a crisis than is actually happening and responds in a beautiful adaptive way by actually, and then we pump that up. Okay, so
Mhm.
we put air right in here, as you know. But once we put that on in this position, which is above the bicep, below the deltoid, now we're going to work distal. We're going to work these guys out first before we do anything this side of it towards the heart, because we want to create the demand, get the physiology going, stress the body in a way that just says, hey, I'm asking for more blood. And all of a sudden people start feeling, like you'd stated, they feel the muscles burning, which is safe. It's literally lactate. Okay. And lactate is, to keep it simple, one of the feedback mechanisms. Like if you're going to go run bleachers or climb a mountain, you guys all know what that's like when you get that burn in your legs and then you have to stop. Well, Jen just said earlier, when she started feeling the burn, it didn't force her to stop. She realized she could, I don't mean to speak for you, but this is what happens is we can keep going.
Right. It felt different. Like it felt like the challenge was there. Like you knew it was going to, we can talk about the weight loss and the fitness and why people are using these and why they're so fantastic from a visceral fat burn, all the things. That's what I felt immediately. Was like, oh, this is a beautiful way to get the burn, feel the burn, kind of, I don't want to say control the burn, but I didn't feel wobbly and shaky. I felt like I could hold it and it was stability. I was like, what is releasing? You could feel it. Now, for those that are more attuned and aware of their body, again, myself, it's like I'm attuned to anything like intuitively, but there's also when you have a health issue, like you're attuned to everything. So I felt it immediately and it just felt stable, like it was supported. That's the best way I could describe it. Like I didn't want to fall over. I didn't feel like I couldn't do it, but it was challenging enough where I knew this is how this is going to work to help lean out muscles, to help strengthen the muscles. And then not only that, what's important to me is get circulation to all the limbs, like everywhere it needs to go. Because another problem that I have, and I catch myself, and this is why it's so nice for me sometimes to work with somebody like you that's paying attention, is that we're human. And over the years, I have favored my right side. When I feel a weakness or something happening, the brain sends a signal like, oh, just lean to your right. Like I'm so favorable. I mean, Mark catches me all the time. I have to think about using my left hand to open the door or to do things or use my zipper because for so long I was right hand. It really attuned me to be aware that both sides of my body was supported. And so again, that's why I got kind of emotional about it because immediately I'm like, you get so I was so excited because that's a key for me. That's a key to open a door for me. And for anybody else, that's again, paralysis, people working through injuries, surgeries, maybe they can't do what they used to do. Or, I speak to a lot of people who were athletic and have these amazing, lives and careers or whatever in athletics, and something has happened, an accident or something where it's taken them out or it's hindered their ability and they feel like they don't have any hope. This is hope, in my opinion, just in and of itself, not even just for those that want to like fine tune and sharpen their fitness goals. For those that maybe have some restrictions, this is not restrictive. This is supportive. So here, carry on.
Yeah, and I realize I don't wanna get too deep in the woods, at the same time, provide enough for those that are, with different levels of advancement, right? So you got professional athletes that use these for enhancing their current performance, reducing their injury proneness by way of actually having increased tendon strength, which comes from the human growth hormone. Okay, so years ago, you had mentioned it lightly in Allie's, I think, that interview, but there was a period in human chorionic growth hormone, HCG,
Oh yeah.
HCG weight loss
That,
program.
that was a thing. That was the weight loss drug. I think what 10, 20 years ago, everybody was like
Yep.
HCG.
So what they're trying to do is throw in a hormone to stimulate the body. That's an infant type hormone, by the way, and it's supposed to be the fountain of youth. Now you're interjecting exogenous into the body, which is a challenge. Just synthetic human growth hormone has side effects. And naturally derived human growth hormone is your body's releasing your own levels of human growth hormone, which are basically revitalizing. They're regenerative, they're youthful, and as adults, we, after 24 years old, we're actually on the downswing of our growth hormone, and it's rapid drop because you're done with your growing phases. Okay, bone growth, ossification centers. In women, it's 23 to 24, men 24 to 25-ish age. So they're done growing bone, right? Everything's fused, ready to go in terms of their growth centers. The human growth hormone, to tap into that as adults, gets harder and harder because our exercise is more cortisol stressful on the body. So back to Hans Selye, there's eustress and distress. Eustress is a good one. And exercise essentially is a good stress, but at first it's a distress. It's hard on the body until our body starts adapting to it. And that requires some versatility. And that's where many people lack the versatility to get into it enough or not harm themselves in the future, right? If we're going to simplify this, the funny thing is BFR should be called blood flow enhancement exercising because that's the byproduct of the restriction. Someone might listen and say, Jen, why would you want to restrict blood flow when you're already missing it in that arm and that leg? So by way of understanding the body's response to things, okay, and again, that's why it's not a hack. I don't think you shortcut it. What we're doing is using the body's brilliance, and now we're tapping into it, which is if we exercise by restricting the venous flow, not cutting off, just restricting, the brain senses that depravity, that drop, while the muscles are asking for more because we just used them. They're flexing, relaxing, which is why we can use low resistance and we don't need the heavy weights, which is harder on the joints, but does get time load volume stimulation. That will stimulate muscle hypertrophy, but not the way we used to think. Here's the caveat. Our mentality, this is the challenge many of us will have if we've been in the gym for years or worked out and exercised, is that we think that we're breaking the muscle down and the body's regenerating it and rebuilding it. And that's where we're tearing down, we're rebuilding, tearing down, rebuilding. Theoretically, I buy some of that. But ultimately, what it turns out to be is lactate release is the real stimulant. So when I'm in the gym and I'm pumping out squats or bench presses or dumbbells, or whatever you want to call it, curls, and all of a sudden I get to that 10th rep, and remember the 11th one is the most important, right? After the failure one, you got to do it. That's the burn. Okay. Now, how long am I in that burn? Because after that one rep or that second rep, that number 12, whatever it is, all of a sudden I can't do that 12th one. I set the weights down. That's the kind of burn you and I were kind of discussing, which is I can't function burn, right?
Right.
With B3, the BFR is that you can function through the burn because, and there's a point, yes, where you will have to stop, but the real point is we're in the burn the whole time. Now, why is that healthy? It's healthy because we're controlling the time it's in there, and that's where all the magic happens physiologically. Pituitary gland senses that oxygen deprivation. There's local receptors in the area that we're stimulating, and then there's global receptor in the brain that says, let's thin the blood, which is a great response, to get more circulation to all those areas in your body, Jen, that were deficit before. And you think, I have circulation because I can still feel my fingers. True, but not to all the capillaries in the most optimal way. So now we just said to the brain, we want to increase blood flow. So we're going to trick you a little bit and restrict some, get this oxygen sensor going. And now the body is going to release growth hormone, nitric oxide, naturally in the body, naturally in the blood vessels. You're going to get what's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is blood flow to the brain. You're going to have what's called VEGF enhancement, which is vascular endothelial growth factor being enhanced. And I said it earlier, regenerative, restorative, rejuvenating hormones are now being tapped into that are actually useful. To me, it was fascinating. And then the growth hormone isn't actually muscle hypertrophy. That comes after the fact. Growth hormone is actually stimulating what's called tendon synthesis. For my shoulder injury, it was enhancing the strength of my tendons, which I was never tapping into by never tapping into the growth hormone, even though I was in the gym doing the work.
Remember, Carrie had a shoulder, and she did not share this until we were in the bands. And was it 2-3 minutes in, she said to you, my shoulder stopped hurting. I've had this shoulder pain for what, 3-4 months, I think she said.
Yep.
And within a couple of minutes, she's walking around looking at me going, what is happening? She said, my shoulder pain is gone. I don't like it. Or I don't understand what's going on. I didn't realize how annoying it was until all of a sudden I just realized it's gone. And so she and I had a conversation on that the next day, actually. She said she was perplexed all night long trying to figure out how that happened so quickly. I mean, I think she knows because you obviously explained it to us, but that blew her mind. I remember that's one of the things we were standing up by your front door afterwards when you came walking out and you're like, bye, ladies. And we're still standing there going, what is happening? My mind was all over the place. And I remember laying in bed that night thinking, I just felt alive. I knew I didn't, I don't normally stand on the scale. I don't even weigh myself in a gravitational state, but I remember feeling slimmer. I remember feeling like I just felt stronger. And I remember thinking, this is pretty fascinating and everybody should know this exists. Of course, neither one of us are trying to say this is the end all be all. Everybody needs this. It's going to fix all your problems. No, that's not what we're saying. However, this has definitely gotten my attention and not a lot of things do because I have to experience everything before I talk about it. Much like you, I don't really share a whole lot. Let me just try that because there's a lot that comes at you, especially in the wellness world.
Yep.
One 14-minute workout you put us through that night. And I think we had a couple breaks in between. And I laid in bed that night thinking, this is game changing for myself and my own wellness and my own fitness goals. But also a lot of people need to understand this exists. And I know I mentioned this to you that evening as well. I checked in with all of my pro athletes, or not all of my pro athletes, my pro athlete trainers who work with the NFL, the Major League Baseball, the NBA, even those that work in Hollywood and, in Nashville, in the country or in the singer world or Hollywood, we'll call it. I called all three of them and said, have you ever heard of these? Every single one was like, yeah, we've been using them for years. That's what the pros use. They know it's game changing. I was like, why didn't anybody tell me? Like, well, first of all, we've known each other for years. Why am I just hearing about this? Of course, they're not going to tell me all the secrets because I'm not, getting paid millions to hurry up and get back out on the field. But this is what they're using. This is what they're doing to not only stay fit and well, but when they suffer an injury or they have something going on, this is one of their modalities, we'll call it. I don't want to say hacks because I don't want to use that word, but this is one of the tricks up their sleeve that they know they have that they can work with the body to move it along a bit quicker, to work with it, to repair, restore, rejuvenate, and then get back out to whatever it is that they need to do. So it was like box, check, 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 check. Okay. And, obviously I have them now and I've been using them for the last few weeks. I love them. I just love the feeling of them. Even if I don't really get a full on workout in, like I said, Mark and I walk every night. Some nights I come home from the walk and just put the leg bands on, do a little planks, do a few wall sits, just get the flow and the energy going. I know I can go for a walk in them. Allie and I spoke about that, and I probably will when I'm on the treadmill but Mark walks fast and I have to keep up. So I'm like, moving, and I'm sure that I could, but I haven't. I want to build myself up to that too, to your point. I don't need to go head first off the cliff just yet. I'll probably wear them on a walk by myself maybe, but I haven't done that yet. But it's game changing. I'm so grateful to have reconnected with Allie on this and then obviously reconnect with you after.
Thanks so much. Great questions too. I hope I didn't complicate some of the answers. I get excited about the science, but to keep it really simple, the byproduct of blood flow restriction is blood flow enhancement to all parts of the body. And then just more regenerative, recuperative, restorative hormones that we haven't been able to tap into it.
Yeah, I feel like we have a couple of follow-up conversations that we'll be having in the new year. So absolutely, I could talk to you all day. I mean, this is why we have shows, right? And so we can have this kind of fun and have these conversations. We hit record, we share them out with the masses and the people. But before I forget, you're in the Madison, Wisconsin area. So you're local to me. You're local to a lot of my listeners. I would love, you have your own show, Life Force Radio, which is not a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. It's not a coincidence that I called Allie that next morning and said, I took his card and it says Life Force Radio on it. And I said, that was the word that came to my mind when I was standing there in those bands. I'm like, I have life force energy working through me right now and I can feel it. Like literally bring me to my knees. I can feel it. And then you hand me your card and I was like, of course it's Life Force Radio. That's not lost on me. So where can people find you if they want to see you as a patient or come they can come to the local, you're in the West Side, Madison, Middleton area. Shout out to where people can find you, connect with you, follow you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The website is getbackfast.com. It's easier than looking up Anunson Chiropractic and spelling that. So you could find it under both AnunsonChiropractic.com or getbackfast.com. And there's also some programs and teaching that I do through drwadeanunson.com, which houses the Feminine Carnivore cookbook, which I developed by way of my patients actually bugging me to do that. But that was a project from the heart that stems back from one of the primary things that I do is help women, actually women and men, but women seem more ready to listen. And I think with everything that's happened the last 4 years that we want, and we really require our women to be strong and healthy because they rule the house. In my opinion, they're the glue. And I'm not just saying that. I know it to be true because my mom was, if my dad was making healthcare decisions, I wouldn't be here today. But because my mom had the wherewithal, the chutzpah, the know-how, and the willingness, she knew exactly where her ducklings needed to be and go and do. I'm just enamored by the role that has to be played right now by all the hats that have to be worn. And it came back to protein in the diet and where social dietary things come from, why it's crucial for us to have what we need to do what we need to do and then raise kids and have the energy. So my heart is in that because I want to make a difference and influence and impact the household. But my practice chiropractically is still my main purpose. I just can't not address some of those other areas that influence it. The work I'm doing is really focused, but it's a bit broad because I have multi-interest and I see the big picture 25,000-foot view, but I really try to help patients focus on a couple key areas so that they can empower themselves. And it really comes from wanting to teach them, not just treat them. And I think that's probably a difference. Not that it's right or wrong or better. I'm just, because it isn't. My heart is in trying to teach them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I like that. That's probably one of the better quotes I've heard is you want to teach instead of treat. Yeah, I like that very much. So thank you, Wade. I appreciate you more than you probably know. I'm so grateful. I know you and I are going to continue to chat and talk and stay connected, but I really appreciate you coming on today, sharing all of your wisdom and your knowledge in and around not just blood flow restriction bands, but just the body, the alignment, working with it, and the energy behind it. So I'm grateful for you. Thank you.
Boy, I'm grateful for you. Thanks.
Okay, friends, thank you so much for tuning in today. And thank you, Dr. Wade, for joining me. I just love chatting with him, and I feel like we could talk for days, obviously. It's got him a long one today, so thanks for staying with us. If you're in the Madison, Wisconsin area and want to work with him personally, please check out the show notes for his chiropractic office and contact info. If you're not in Southern Wisconsin, please connect by following him on his socials and listening to his show, Life Force Radio. Also, if this show or any of my other shows have been helpful for you, thank you for writing a review, rating the show, and sharing it with your friends and family. It's truly the way the world goes round, and I so appreciate you. Thanks again for tuning in, my friends. I love you all. Cheers to your health and happiness. We'll see you next week. Thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you. If you love this episode, please leave a rating and review on Apple and Spotify. This helps me expand my reach to other health and wellness enthusiasts. If you're interested in purchasing a Clear Light sauna, have a topic request, or just want to connect with me, please head over to my site, jenhellerlifestyle.com.